Ever since I started making content, people have pretty much called me an Intel fanboy. They said that all I care about is Intel. Basically, Intel's paying me to support them. Not true. But earlier this year, I picked up a 7800 X3D. And I decided that for the last month, I was going to daily drive this CPU only, putting my 1400 KS to the side and exclusively using AMD. A lot of people don't know this, but the CPU that I actually was using when I first created my YouTube channel about 4.5 years ago was actually a Ryzen 5 2600X. So yeah, I was daily driving AMD back in the day when I was first making content, even when I was critical of them. That's actually the CPU that I learned to overclock on. I learned to overclock the CPU itself, which I think I hit like 4.2 gigahertz on, which was pretty good for a 2600X, as well as overclocking the RAM. It was some bad CDI RAM that I got to like 3200 CL15. It wasn't great, but like for what I had at the time, it was pretty good. I was only 15 at the time. I didn't have much money. So in my most popular video of all time on YouTube is me being critical of not buying a 7800 X3D, and instead I said to buy a 1300K back in the day and just overclocking it and you're gonna get higher performance. I have some right to say so because I've used both platforms for the past couple of years. What was the rig I used for the last month? So obviously I used my 7800 X3D. This was PBO overclocked. And then I used the Gigabyte B650 Gaming AX V2. I got it in a Micro Center bundle. It's nothing special. It's not like a really good motherboard. In fact, I'd say it's pretty bad. Like I always am having random issues with it that we will get to in the future, but it's a fine motherboard. Personally though, I would recommend getting something like an MSI board or an ASRock board for AM5 as of right now. I don't have any experience with the 800 series motherboards like the X870, so I have no idea about those. But from my personal experience, ASRock and MSI are going to be your best bet on AMD. The RAM overclock that I was basically running daily was 2x16 6000 CL30. It's nothing special. I covered it in my how to set up my Zen 5 video, Zen 4 as well, that I posted probably about 2 months ago. So this it's a pretty good overclock. It's gonna get you about 99% of the performance. But I also have like a 6200 CL30 profile. I also have a 6400 profile that's not performs as well actually because it's a little tighter, little looser timings. But we'll get into why I wasn't dailying the 6200, which explains the motherboard issues as well. Also as well, obviously I had a 2TB NVMe. We don't care about that. And my 4090 running on the XOC BIOS at 3 gigahertz plus 1000 on the memory. So if there's any performance issues that I didn't experience on my 1400 KS, it's just that because everything else was basically the same. So we're just gonna get like the annoyances that I experienced out of the way now because I wanna end this video on a little bit more of a higher note. Boot times. It takes somewhere like 30-40 seconds at the fastest to boot this system, which isn't really super duper annoying, but it's something where it's like I'll turn on the PC and then I'll go walk in the other room, fill up my water bottle, make a sandwich, make a 5-course meal, and then it will load. It's nothing that like I really want to like deal with on a normal basis when typically I just want to turn on the PC and about 10 seconds later, maybe even less, the Intel PC's on. This kind of ties into the boot times thing though, but randomly I would restart the PC. Let's say I had a bunch of programs open and I just wanted to restart it, you know, kind of refresh Windows a little bit so I could play some competitive games with my friends. The PC just wouldn't boot. I don't know why. It was 100% stable. I was running multiple 24-hour stress tests, Karhu, VT3, anything you name, it would pass it. But then I'd restart and it just wouldn't boot. I'd have to like take RAM sticks out, clear the CMOS, just for it, get it to boot again and then reload the profile and it would work perfectly fine, be 100% stable. I can't explain it. It's so weird and it was super duper annoying. I've never had that issue on my Intel rig or any other PC in fact. This is also like a kind of not a massive issue, but it's something I did notice. I recently purchased an OP1 8K. This is a custom shell on it, but this is an OP1 8K and I was running 8K hertz on it. 8K is in the name, it should be able to run 8K. Playing Fortnite, it's just stuttering a bunch. I'm like, this is just weird. I turn it down to 4K, performance is fixed. No lows, issues, no stuttering, nothing. It was perfectly fine. And this is one of those things where I'm talking about these chiplet designs. Chiplet designs are not supposed to be used for competitive gaming, because that IO die moving to the chiplet, that infinity fabric, that's what's going to actually be negatively affecting you. Where something like the i9, it's a monolithic chip. You have your P cores and your E cores, yeah. I've never had an issue though with actual polling rate stability on an Intel CPU. I know that 8K isn't perfect. I still would recommend 4K just for most people. But still, if you like have a mouse that can do 8K motion sync, you can't really do that on a 7900X3D. And then this last thing is very like obvious. This only has 8 cores. The 14900KS that I have has 24 cores and 32 threads. So you're gonna get significantly more multi-threaded performance. I do edit on my machine, I do videos, I do content creation, obviously. So when I'm trying to generate optimized media so I can like edit these videos just a little bit better on this computer, it was taking so much longer on the 7900X3D. Obviously, I understand this. I bought an 8-core. Maybe I should have got a 7950X3D and it would have been a little bit more comparable. But the 14900KS does do multitasking insanely better. So like, if you're watching Twitch streams on the side, you're gonna notice performance dip where you're not gonna notice one on the 14900KS. But now here's the pros. The FPS is basically the same in games when you're just playing the game, which is such a big deal. So the reason I say they're basically the same is that there's some games where the AMD PC is gonna win, and there's gonna be some games where the Intel one wins. It all depends on the scenario. It really depends on what the game is using. If it fits in the cache, perfect. It's gonna 100% win on AMD, but if it doesn't, it's gonna have issues. And that's where Intel's gonna win. Also, like the 1% lows just aren't as good at times at the 7000X3D. I have a full review. I've done multiple full reviews on this, so just check out my previous videos from a couple months ago and you'll really see what I'm talking about. But like efficiency, like this CPU stays at 65 watts max. This one in games, now all these people who say this thing pulls 400 watts, they're lying to you. This thing has never pulled 400 watts in a game in my life. The only time this ever has is when I'm running like Y Cruncher or Prime 95. I'm trying to purposely heat up the CPU to stress test it. In a game, the highest I've ever seen is about 200 watts when compiling shaders, while in a normal game it's about 120 watts. So that's a little less than double the amount of the 7000X3D. And also you need to really compare this to the rest of your setup. So I actually did a video when I was benchmarking the 7000X3D earlier this year against the 1400KS. I compared power draw. And the power draw was significantly higher on this, yes, 100%. But the total PC power draw was a significantly smaller delta. And if you added your monitor, which I didn't at the time, my monitor pulls about 130, 150 watts, I believe. It's the LG dual mode OLED. Maybe it pulls more. The delta between the power draw of the two systems and the two setups combined really does slim, which was really nice because I was doing this kind of during the summer. I did this most of August and September. You didn't have to worry about your PC heating up your room and getting super hot and having fans running. No, it stayed pretty cool compared to like when I'm stress testing this, it gets really hot. When I'm not stress testing, I really don't notice a temperature increase though. Which leads to the last pro. Once you actually get the system set up, most of the time it's going to be fine. If you get those chipset drivers installed, if you get that RAM properly kind of tuned, following like a BuildZoid guide or something, you're going to be enjoying and having a good gaming experience, which is for most people what they want out of their computer. They want to come home from a long day or come home from work, come home from school, and they want to be like, you know what? I just want to play some games. And if this can do that, I see that as a win for AMD. Same thing with Intel. These both will do that. You can both just turn on your PC and have no issues. I didn't bring up the Intel degradation stuff just because I see it as a non-issue. I have dealt with hundreds of these i9s and had zero degradation out of any CPU that I've worked on. If you're more interested in my services, ChamberTech.net, link is down below. So yeah, like honestly, if you just play games, buy this CPU. There'll be an affiliate link down below to both of these that I mentioned today. Like if you're multitasking though, I definitely would not recommend this CPU. Try and get something like a 14700K, maybe even a 14600K will get much better multitasking. Get a 13600K actually, they're the same thing. Possibly though, the 9950X3D and I guess the 9900X3D will have Vcache on both CCDs. So that is something that you could look out for if you want to multitask and you want those high gaming performance. But I'm a little skeptical about this. It's going to get really hot. The performance is probably not going to be as high in single threaded at all compared to like the 9800X3D. But If you are interested in that, hit that like button down below and subscribe, because I will probably be picking one up because that seems super duper cool. That's a super cool CPU that I'm looking forward to. So if you guys have enjoyed, like button down below, subscribe. If you haven't already, leave a comment telling me if you're on AMD or Intel. Let me know your thoughts. If you're an AMD fanboy, I'll definitely be hearing from you in the comments. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.